Hey guys, this is Carrie, and this is the answer key video for homework number 6. So again, we've got one of these function problems, but they're good to practice. So the most important thing with these is to recognize the input and the output. Hopefully you're able to fill in that silence because I've said it so many times on these videos. So in this case, we're going to input a into the function, and that gives us our output 2. So now solving for a, we use inverse operations to isolate it. So 2a minus 4 equals 10. Add 4 on both sides. 2a is equal to 14. Divide by 2. A is equal to 7. Now for this one, we do the same thing. We classify our inputs and outputs. So this time, when we input 2 into the function, it gives us our output, b. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 4 over 5 is b. 4 minus 4 is 0, over 5 is b. 0 divided by 5 is 0, so b must be 0. Determine the domain and range of the function graph below. So this time it doesn't specify what format they want these answers in, so it's your choice about inequality or interval notation. So I'm going to do both of them in inequality notation, I guess, because I think that that's the harder version. All right, so the domain is all of the included x values. So you can draw a line at the lowest possible x value, and you can see really clearly that the function never actually hits this. So we have to move this line to the left. So the start of our domain is going to be x equals -6. So our domain is going to be in this format. -6 is less than x because it's domain, and then the highest x value that we hit is 8. So one correction to make, this is less than or equal to because we have the solid bubble there, and this one is still less than because we have the white bubble. Okay, next up, we've got the range. So let me switch to pink for range. So range is going to be the y values. So I can just draw it down here so I can do the same thing that I did before. So in order to find the range, we need to keep raising this until we hit the lowest possible y value, which is right there. And so that's y equals -4. Now we can do the same thing with the highest possible y values. So let me see if this works. So to find the highest possible y value, you can take it and lower it from the top. And it looks like here's where we need to cut it off. And so that's y equals 7. So all of our y values for the range are -4 is less than all of his y values, which is less than 7. So all the y values are between -4 and 7. And lastly, we need to have a equality option for -4 because of the solid bubble there. Well, no equality option here because of the open bubble. All right, for problem, I got a little ahead of myself in the last problem, so I'm going to redo it from the beginning. So step 1 is going to be this function with f of x. We're going to want to switch the input and output, but in order to do that, we need to rewrite the function with y. And what that means is, instead of having f of x equals 4x minus 8, this is equivalent to y equals 4x minus 8, because f of x and y are just two ways of saying the output. Next up, we need to turn this into the inverse. So to make this the inverse, switch x and y, or switch the input and output. Okay, so doing that, we'll turn this from the original function into a brand new function, the inverse. So we switch the input and output. Last steps here, solve for y. And then step 4 is convert to f inverse of x notation. So solving this equation for y, we add 8 to both sides. That gives us x plus 8 equals 4y. We divide by 4 on both sides. That gives us 1 over 4x plus 8 over 4 is 2 equals y. And then when we rewrite that with f inverse of x, it's f inverse of x instead of y equals 1 over 4x plus 2. Cool. Next up for problem 2, problem 4, you're going to have to figure this one out on your own. For problem 5, f of x equals this. This looks a little tricky. Yeah, let's do this one together. So to find f inverse of x, we follow those steps. Switch it to y with step 1. To make it the inverse, switch the input and output. So we're going to switch the x and the y. So it becomes x equals 3 over 4y plus 6. Step 3, solve for y. Minus 6 on both sides. We get x minus 6 equals 3 over 4y. Multiply by 4 on both sides to cancel out the division by 4. That gives us 4. Make sure you put the parentheses. 4x minus 24 equals 3y. And then you divide by 3 on both sides and you get y equals 4 over 3 x minus 8 from the 24 over 3. Finally, we rewrite it for step 4 with the f inverse of x notation. Sorry for switching from pink. This all should have been pink, I think, because this is the inverse function. But f inverse of x is 4 over 3x minus 8. All right, the next one is tricky too, but I'm going to leave that as a challenge for you guys to figure out. Just be careful with your fractions. Think about the problem that we just did, and hopefully it all comes together.